What's up everybody, my name is Jerry and you're watching Rusty Notes Productions. Welcome back everyone to How to Mix Pop Punk series. Brand new song where we mix the song Loser by We Are Lost. Last time, the first episode we did, we reamped the guitars, we reamped the bass using Kemper. And I actually showed you how you can transfer audio tracks for your snare and kick into MIDI and use some samples with it. So we used GGD and we used SSD. We might change some samples, add some more, take some out. We have to really listen to the raw drum tracks first. So today we're going to reamp the two guitar tracks that we didn't reamp the last time we saw each other, and we're also going to start mixing and building a sound. That's what's up for today, so let's just get into it, shall we? So this is basically where we left off the last time. So that's basically the status of the song at the moment. We have some more DI tracks we need to convert to... there's some form of intro thing here. Let's see what this is. That actually sounds like the same as the rhythm guitars, so we're actually going to use the same profile as we had, which was from the Dan Corneff pack with STL tones. We used his artist profiles, which is actually based on the tone he had for A Day to Remember, which worked really good for this song. Did this program crash? Maybe we need to restart it. Okay, so let's pick the A Day to Remember profile, one of them, it doesn't really matter which one. And let's output this into the reamp and see that the volume is okay. And it is, so we can actually just record this bit real quick. And we can just put that into one of the main tracks here. So we have something like this. Sorry, it's double because I'm still reamping, so let's take that out. Here we go. Cool. Okay, so we have that done, so we can change the color on that as well. We can name that same as the other one. Let's just copy this. Be a lazy boy or a smart boy, whatever you want. Put that to the top. That might be in center, but not right now. Okay, so we have other stuff here. Let's see what this is. Shouldn't be a clean sound, it should be a distorted tone, I think. Yeah. Okay, so it's some form of lead tone, but not that high gain, I guess. So let's find a tone that works for this type of stuff. So let's just loop a section here, kind of like that. Let's try and find a tone that we like. kind of like that, and that sounds nothing like the bass tone we have, right? I think it's different enough to stand out. Let's reamp just a tiny section of it, and we can play it back with the normal or with the rhythm guitars and see how it sounds together. So this is a big part of mixing nowadays. Most of the time I just get DI signals, DI tracks, and I need to make up the guitar sounds myself, which I actually prefer, since I rather choose the tone myself than the band. I mean, if the band knows what they're doing, it's more fun to have them choose the tune, but tone, not the tune. Alright, okay, so let's listen to this together with the rhythm and see how it fits. We can make that work. That could absolutely work. So let's reamp this. Let's keep it here. Where is it? There. Let's reamp this, and we'll be right back. Let's reamp the whole song with this profile. Okay, there we go. Sounding great. We also gonna do the other one. We have another. Can change the color for this because we're done with it. Lower the volume. We have another lead guitar. I guess you can call it a lead guitar. And I want to do the same thing I did with the rhythm guitars. I want to use a different profiles for the different side. That's a really good trick if you want to have the music sound wider. You use different guitar tones for different side. So you use one profile or one amp sim or one cab IR, for instance, on one side and another for the other side, which can make it bigger. Another few tricks we will do later on with automation, where we can have like the verse guitars like 70% left and right, and when the chorus hit we can take it out 100%, which is an old trick that actually opens up the chorus just a tiny bit. So we're gonna do small tricks like that, but that comes at the end of the whole process. So let's reamp. Let's find another tone for the other beat. And let's stay in the same ballpark at least. Is that the end? Nope. That could work. It's a Marshall JVM 410. So we're just going to use that, and we're going to reamp the whole lead guitar. I just adjusted the volume. As you can see, the dynamics of these two tracks aren't quite the same. I just need to level match these as good as I can on the way in, which makes it easier for us later on, since we don't have to level match them later on with compression or with automation and stuff. We want to have it sounding roughly the same volume and roughly the same dynamic. I mean, we can still crush it with an L2 or whatever, but I try to get it as close as the finished product as I can in the box, so we don't have to do as much later on. So that's what I tweaked it while it was running. So I'm just going to delete this that I just did, redo it. And that looks quite right, so we're gonna go with it. And there we go. Finally. So that was the second lead part. Can move this up. Call this same as this, but take out the DI. Like that. We can put this left and right. I'm gonna do 70% left and 70% right. So now. So let's see how they sound together. Sorry, we need to take out the recording aspect of it. Since it reamped once again. Here we go. Almost sounded like one performance with a delay pedal to make it stereo, but sounded a bit weird at for a second, but we will roll with it. We have two more to reamp. It's going to be a quick ones because I think that these are just effects. So let's have a listen on what this is. Yeah, that's exactly the same as the rhythm guitars. Yes, with a slight shopping. What's it called? I lost the word for it. You know, that stuttering effect. So let's just pick the same profile we used for one of the rhythm guitars, which is one of these. So let's just pick that and record this part right here. Looks like I clipped the input of my Kemper, so I'm gonna dial down the volume. There we go. And now I'm gonna play around with the gain as well and see if we can get a tighter stuttering effect. So I might use an EQ, green screamer type thing on the Kemper, and we can see if that sounds any better. So let's loop this section right here and see if we can dial in a more tighter tone to it. I think that might work, so let's record this. Okay, and let's put that into one of the main rhythms. Well, I guess it's not replacing, it just adds to it. So we have something like this for this section, I guess. Okay, that's pretty cool. What I want to do with that is I want to put it like the telephone filter sound effect to it. We can do something really simple, quick with this, which we can replace later. But if we take an EQ to it and just take out the lows and the highs and boost the mids a tiny bit, it sounds something like this. Let's raise the volume on this so you can actually hear what I'm doing. Something like that. We can mess around with that later, but for now, just so I don't forget it, so we have it now. Okay, so we have one final thing to reamp, and it was the last effect. We have two things right there, so I guess those are going to be just the same. So let's just do this one more time right here. We can do this quickly because it's just few places. There we go. Oh wait, I'm going to take out the effects we did for this and raise it up the gain a tiny bit. Let's do this as well. Did I overdrive my input there on the Kemper? Yeah, I did. Okay. Lower it still. And I think I need to take out the noise gate for this, since it should be a fade, I guess. So let's try it again over here. Okay, it's a tiny bit better. It gets kinda... Let's listen to just this part right here, the DI, and let's see how it sounds. Wait, was that real already? Sounded like it really already had effect on it. Okay, it did, so we didn't need to replace it. That's weird. I guess same thing here as well then. Yeah, okay, I wonder if that was the case for this as well though. The glitchy part. No, okay, it wasn't. That's strange, but anyway, we have it now. So the guitars all together sounds like, wait, let's see here. These shouldn't be in these should be in a separate folder. We can call that, where is the packed folder? Let's call that lead. Give that another color, maybe like purple is what I usually do. Okay, so here's all the DI when we have a one single effects as well. So we can close that DI folder. Now we have the lead folder inside of guitars. Perfect. So if we listen to rhythm and lead together at the moment, we have something like this. I like the guitar sound of this. I think it sounds pretty good at the moment. And we still haven't done any EQ or processing to it, but yeah, it sounds good, but we still need to add the bass to this. We have a bass tone already, but we'll see if that fits when we start putting everything together. Okay, cool. So now when we have that going for us, we can start by doing some buses. Let's see, this is, what is this? This is the rhythm tracks. These two are the rhythm tracks. Let's bus these two together. Name it rhythm. And we have, so we can move these down. There we go. We have these two. They should be in the lead one. Lead. Put that to the same color. I think it was purple. Yeah. Put all these to the side. We have the effects tracks there as well. And take that out this one. Okay, so we are getting somewhere. Now I want to focus on, I think we're going to start mixing something now. So I'm going to focus firstly on the drums, make sure that the velocities are quite good. We can get away with higher velocities since we're gonna keep the original drums. But I don't know if we want to have the original drums as the main drums or if we want to use the samples, because the main drum, the drum tone wasn't really there for this type of song. So we'll see. And I don't know if we should keep it at MIDI or if we should bounce it down, but I think we can keep it as of now, just in case we need to do some modifications to the MIDI track later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the drums I want from both Steven Slate and Get Good Drums, and we're going to fix the outputs so we have not a single stereo bus for Steven Slate. I want to have like the separate room and all that jazz. So we're going to set that up for a minute here. So we go to MIDI drums, where what I think is the Slate one. Yeah, this is Slate. Let's see, we can turn it up so we can hear. I kind of like this kick. This snare is cool too. Steven Slate has recently released his original one-shot snares, which are extremely good, and I like the Hybrid 4 the most. That and which one? I think the fat one. I don't like too much sizzle in my snare drums. The big one is kind of cool too, so we're gonna use that as well. Oh, hi, Mr. Kitty Cat. We have these snare drums and the toms. So let's go to the mixer section, and we're gonna make sure that we output it correctly. So kick in and kick out can go to the same track, snare top, snare bottom to the same track. I'm not really picky with these samples. Snare ring, we definitely want to keep some of that in. It's not much, but it's something, and I think it sounds great. E snare, we can do a separate track for that because that's the other snare drum. We might have way too many snare drums on this track, but I kind of like it, blending a lot of them. So let's output this toms to a stereo bus. That's fine for this track at least. The overhead to a separate one, number 5, and the rooms to single one. And one trick that I love to do, which I do in most metal productions I do with samples, is that I pick the black snare, which should emulate the snare from the Black Album by Metallica. And I take that, but I go to the mixer and I go to said snare drum, which is this, and I take out the direct signal from it and just keep the room. So we should okay, that's because I bounced it out or put it out to the room. So we should only have the snare room from that specific sample. So now we just need to go into Studio One and make sure that we see all inputs from the instruments from Steven Slate. And there we go. So we know that this is the kick, this is the snare, this is the snare 2, this should be the toms, right? Yeah, and this is the overhead, and this is the room. So we can take out that. So now we have all the samples for Steven Slate. Let's just color code them as well in yellow. That's what I like using on my drums. And let's do the same thing for Get Good Drums here. I don't know if we really need to keep the drum or the toms for this, since the Slate ones are so good. But let's keep it in and we can take it out if we don't need it. So let's go to, let's see, first off we need to use the Modern and Massive template I have here and refresh this so we actually can choose that. And we're going to send this to kick to overhead, which we're not going to use because it sucks in this, so we're not going to use that either. Room mono, room close, room far, and we not want to use the bass drum, kick drum in the rooms that much. The mono room is fine. Snare, we're going to use snare, snare, overhead, take this down just a tiny bit too. Mono room, close room, room 4, and just raise this up a tiny bit. And that's about it. Oh yeah, we're using the toms, right? Send all these to a tom bus. To overheads, same thing here. Don't really want to do it. Okay, in the mono room, sure. Room close and room 4. And we're not using any symbols, so I'm not going to worry about that. Let's just make sure that we're not clipping any of the outputs. The snare drums is kind of hot, so we're going to take this down just a touch. So we're not clipping any outputs. And make sure that we have all the ones we need. There we go. Okay, so we know that we have the kick right here, I think. Yeah, that's the GGD. Let's call it kick 2, since we have a kick from slates. And this will be snare 3 as of now. These are the toms, I think, right? Yep, so we call these toms 2. And this is what? Upper 3. Didn't we use it for anything? That's the highest, so it's not being used. So we can take that out. That's the overhead, so we call this overhead 2. These are the rooms, which are kind of tricky because they come out as mono, but we still have 2 of them for the mono room. So we're going to call it mono room left, mono room right. It doesn't really make sense, and it doesn't have to make sense. Call this mono room. Just bear with me on this. It's my own workflow, and I guess you will have your own workflow, but it's like this for me. So, and this is the close room left, close room right, and finally I have the far room left and right here. Far room left, far room right, and we're going to put these into a bus as well. Call this C room for close room, and this as F room for far room, and we can bus all these to rooms. And we can also send the room from slate to rooms. And we also want to send, we have drum. Is this a drum room? This is the drum room. Send that to rooms as well. But we want to make a drum bus. Drums. Let's put that in yellow. And we're going to send all these. Oh, maybe we should make a kick bus and send all the kick drums to the kick bus, and we have 2 of them. Kick. Let's put these there, and let's do a snare 1 as well. And this is just so we can balance it easier once we have like the mix we want. So snare over here as well. Snares. By the way, we can take these out, which is that one. Tom bus, we need that as well. Toms. Put that there. Put the toms to that. Snare, you should go to the snare. Overhead should go all that. We need to make an overhead bus as well. Since we have so many raw tracks for each specific thing, it's way easier to just make buses out of it and just send everything to the buses, and we can process the bus instead of the individual tracks. I mean, we're gonna do some things to the individual tracks as well, but most of the things will be done at the see this. These two need to go to mono room. There we go. Okay, so we can do the same thing with this as well now. These are the original real kit. So we're gonna take all these parts and send it to the correct corresponding bus. Hi-hat, I guess we can take to the overhead bus. Overheads. Drum room is already in drum room. And this is like drum machine, which we can do directly to the drum bus. And all these need to go, there we go, to the drums. We can actually put this here as well. So now we can, let's just do this. Let's use another type of yellow. And let's keep these in darker yellow, so we know. We know. And now we have everything in this. We can just control the whole drum kit with this. Okay, so what we want to do first is we need to check the phase, since we're using both different samples from different manufacturers and real kit, so we need to make sure that the kick is in phase. So let's grab the real kick as the base. Let's listen to this. Let's loop a section here. Crank it up so we can hear it. Okay, let's put in one of the sample kicks. And let's try to flip the phase. No, those are in phase. Okay, so that's good. So we can take that out. Let's introduce the other kick from Get Good. I think that might be out of phase, but what we can do in this is we can remove the low one from this. Keep the low one from some of the other kicks. Okay, but just let's start with, we need to start somewhere. We need to get a good drum sound. So first off, we can start with a real kick, and we need to gate it and stuff like that. So what I want to do is I want to have on all these buses, we're gonna use the slate. Search for rack, virtual mix rack, and we want to have some form of hardware emulation, console emulation. And I like G channel, so we're gonna go with that once it's loaded, which is hopefully soon. There we go. Let's delete everything here and just use the harmonies. We're gonna use two things. Virtual channel here. I'm gonna set that to Brit channel, and we're gonna crank that. Sorry, that's my phone. Can take these out because we're gonna copy the first one. So let's just do this first. Gonna crank it pretty good with a drive. There we go. We're also gonna use one of the preamp things, and I kind of like the London version. Less is more, so let's keep it right here. I don't want to clip it though, so let's ungroup this. Okay, that's fine. we're gonna use what else? I thought of something. We're gonna use a gate on this since we have a snare drum in this. If we crank it, we can hear it. There we go, that's fine. And let's put virtual tape machine on it as well. Okay, that's cool. Let's do that with the snare as well. Let's do it with overheads. And with the room tracks. Okay, that sounds pretty cool at the moment. And that was, what kind of rooms did we have? Did we have every room? Let's listen to just the room from the slate one, because that's my favorite, which is this. Can really hear the black snare here if we take it out. See how much that adds? Super cool. But we need to start getting a drum tone here. So let's just focus on overheads first. So we're gonna just keep the overheads from the real kit at the beginning, and we're gonna raise up the overheads from the slate snares and from the GGD snare. So let's loop a section here, just a random one. Boop. Doesn't add much really. Okay, that's fine. We're just gonna do kind of like we always do, like a quick mix at first, and then we can fine tune it later on. So I'm gonna use an EQ first to high pass some of that low end. Clean up the highs just a tiny bit. But I need to compress this as well. I like to compress in series. Nope, not this one. $11.76. Where is the? Should have some overhead presets, doesn't it? There we go. Some compression. Let's use some more compression in series. The monster is kind of cool too. We have a come over. Yeah, that's kind of good. So let's introduce the kick here. Let's first listen to the raw kick and see what we can do with that. Needs to be brighter for sure. Serious issues in the low end. Okay, let's introduce some of the samples from Slate. And GGD. Let's process that together. I like a really wet kick, like kind of like a wet towel slap, and that's kind of around 800. Kind of sounds pretty cool. That's a good start. Let's use some compression on that as well. Okay, so that's a good start. Let's put that together with the overheads. Let's bring in the snare. And same thing here, we're going to listen to the raw snare first. Just the snare we got from the original kit here. See how that sounds. Got some gating to do here. Okay, that's pretty good. So that snare is, it's okay. It's kind of dark and dull. So that's why we have from the snare one. So I'm just not too big of a fan of the snare from the real kit. So we're gonna keep that a tiny bit down and use the samples instead. Kind of like that. Let's see if we can find a good snare tone here. With some EQ. I like the Neve style EQ for snare. Need to do a small adjustment in the EQ because it sounds kind of bubbly somehow. Like, we can always fine tweak later on as well. Maybe add some tiny we need to introduce some smack to it as well, and that's where we use compression. Smack it pretty hard, Ryan. I like this. Then we can use one of my favorite emulation plugin, the NLS from Waves. If you put it to the mic setting and drive it. Kind of somehow act as a clipper. Sounds pretty cool. Let's put the tape emulator at last in chain. There we go. Let's blend that in with the rest of the kit. The relationship between the kick and snare is the most important part, so you can also adjust them together in solo. Let's bring in the overheads. Also, the room track is really important for the drum tone, so let's take a look at that. Banging room track. Can use more saturation on that for sure. Really drive it. Snag it pretty big. Just clean it up a tiny bit. Let's bring that in together with the rest of the kit. I see that we have some dirt in the toms channel as well. So we're gonna clean that up. But not today, because we have run over the time. So we haven't done really much today. Today was a slow process, I know. But sometimes you have to do the dirty work before you can actually make it sound pretty cool. So we're gonna cut it here. And once we get back, I might have cleaned up the drums a tiny bit more behind the scenes, so you don't have to sit and watch me do it for hours and hours. And that's all for today. So see you next time. Bye bye.